Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am recording this on June 21st. We're going to go over the negotiations that are happening in Switzerland, what the probability of a potential agreement might take place, and how that might affect the oil markets tomorrow. But before we do that, please help support the work that I do. You can donate on my website. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel or my Substack channel. I have great products that I offer on my website that will help to slow down the aging process. This is something that I've curated over the years and with my experience have developed a system that helps to slow down the aging process. It's very simple. It's about boosting up your energy levels, bringing down inflammation, and soaking up free radicals. But when you do this synergistically with certain types of supplements, you get this added benefit, and it'll help you to slow down the aging process and help to slow down the metallization of your genome. So you're keeping a youthful epigenetics. It's a very simple idea, but most people don't do it. And unfortunately, this is part of the reason why people age faster than they should be. But with that, we're going to go over some of the clips about the discussions that are taking place. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take a look at the great products that I offer, such as zeolite. Zeolite is a great way to detoxify your body. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink it with filtered water, do that daily, and what will happen is you're going to be binding, zeolite will bind to the heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. You can do this every day throughout the year, or you can take 3 to 5 small drops underneath your tongue, do that daily until the bottle's done, and then do that once or twice a year. Depends on how you want to detoxify your body. You can slowly detoxify your body throughout the whole year, or you can do a little bit more aggressive technique with detoxifying your body once or twice a year. Depends on your method. But this type of zeolite you can do every day. Another great way to detoxify your body is to take the gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. Now, heirloom barley will detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. So you're slowing down the aging process, you're helping your cardiovascular system, you're helping with brain function, helping with the immune system and the endocrine system. But you're also detoxifying your body. You get all the benefits in gladiator barley as you have in heirloom barley, but you get one added benefit, and that is when you're doing resistance training, you'll be able to build muscle quicker. And this stacks really well with Myodrome. So please go to my store, get the gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. It's a great way to detoxify your body, but it also helps to slow down the aging process by keeping down inflammation and soaking up those free radicals. So you'll have, when you're soaking up free radicals, you're preventing plaque formation. When you're keeping down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, your neurons are healthier. So it's very important to do. It's a month's supply. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So we're going to play this clip from Fox News. Iran will only respond to these 2 things, according to the expert that they're interviewing.
In Switzerland, as Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner begin nuclear talks with Iran.
A couple days of talk, they can talk in the right way. There's a lot to discuss, but we're going to go through it all. I think we're hopefully making progress on the nuclear issue, make progress on the Lebanon fire issue. These things that we're going to be focused on.
Meanwhile, President Trump is threatening tolls in the Strait of Hormuz if Iran fails to reach a final deal, saying, quote, there will be no tolls in the Hormuz Strait for 60 days during the ceasefire period. And there will be no tolls after the 60-day period has expired unless they are imposed by and for the United States of America. should the deal not be completed. Here to discuss is former diplomat and retired U.S. Army Colonel Joel Rayburn, a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So obviously this comes at the end of months of fighting, but at the beginning of these negotiations. Where do you think things stand right now between the U.S. and Iran in terms of how seriously Iran is about trying to reach a long-lasting peace deal?
Yeah, Charlie, well, it looks to me like the Iranian regime has a couple of objectives here that don't really match up with U.S. objectives. I think their first objective in these negotiations is to try to buy time, to try to kick the can down the road as much as possible. That's their number one negotiating tactic. If you recall, they strung the Obama administration into 2 years of talks on the nuclear issue back from 2013 to 2015. I think they're going to try to do the same thing with President Trump, which means that the only way to curtail that and keep them on track is he's got to maintain the credible use of the threat of force and economic pressure. Those are the only two things that they respond to. I think beyond that, Charlie, the number one thing that they're looking for is to try to keep Hezbollah alive, because the people who call the shots in Tehran right now, the Revolutionary Guards, for them, I think this war has become about preserving Hezbollah as an ideological model and as an instrument to use against Israel in the future.
How do you think President Trump has done so far in terms of using force and economic sanctions to bring Iran to the table? And how do you think what will that look like going forward, either during the 60-day period or after the 60-day period?
Even when you have a successful ceasefire and a peace agreement with Iran, and they potentially denuclearize, you still have the problem of low barriers of entry in other weapons of mass destruction, including biologics. This is the reason why the IRGC and the theocratic regime had to be completely destroyed. If you look in history, it's only absolute total victory in unconditional surrender that leads to lasting peace. Ceasefires, armistice, just kick the can down the road. Now that could go down the road 50 years, but it's not real peace. And eventually it will flare up again.
Well, he's done very well with the credible threat of force. I don't think the Iranians would be in Geneva today if the president had not returned to force in those airstrikes about 10 days ago. I think they had gotten to that point and they somehow believed they were out of trouble and that he wasn't going to go back to the use of force. So it was really important.
What it was is that Trump basically said, we're going to take the oil, we're going to take the natural gas, we're going to take Karg Island, and then all of a sudden the UAE starts getting involved to do a quick diplomacy talk. The GCC, they don't want the United States to have control of the Strait of Hormuz, nor the control of Iranians' oil, because it changes the whole dynamic for them. Now, geopolitically, it's actually better for us because it's a leverage point against China, especially if they try to go into Taiwan or try to close off the 9-dash line or the 9-10 line. But it was UAE that jumped in and said, we'll give you money, Iran, we'll help you to do reconstruction with this $300 billion? I think it's $300 billion reconstruction package. But the UAE was worried that the United States was going to take over the oil fields of Iran. So this is the reason that you can't trust the GCC, and you can't honestly trust the Israelis. From a United States perspective, you can't trust the Arab nations, nor can you trust Israel.
I think also, the administration, I think, has to do something similar with the economic sanctions enforcement that Secretary Bessent was leading, which was getting really tight. I mean, that's another difference between this instance in 2013 to 2015. The Obama administration just didn't have the same sanctions enforcement mechanism in place. So it's important to maintain both those things. Otherwise, the Iranians are just going to kick the can down the road.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it really is the big difference between the Obama deal and the Trump deal is Obama and Trump. And that will probably define all of this as either success or failure. Joel, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube.
Please go to my store at the-studio-reykjavik.com. Another great product that you can stack with Gladiator barley or take separately is Myotrol. Myotrol has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans that will help with the gene expression to maintain and build muscle. When you get older, you methylate genes. And that methylation process also silences some of the expression of building muscle. This is the reason why you lose muscle and it's hard to gain muscle after age 40 for males or for females. But you can reverse that by taking certain types of supplements that actually help with the gene expression. Myotrol will do that. Myotrol will also help the health of your mitochondria so you have the ATP to maintain the muscle and to build the muscle. Super important. And by building muscle in your mid-ages or later, that's very important because you're building up higher concentrations of myokines and you're building up higher concentrations of BDNF. Those are neuroprotective. So actually building muscle actually helps your brain function. This is part of the reason where when you have lots of atrophy, brain function can radically go down. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Myotrol. You can stack it with Gladiator barley to help with building muscle, do some resistance training. You want about a 60-40 split where you have 60% of your workout is resistance training, 40% is cardio, or a 70-30 split. But make sure you do balancing exercises and stretching exercises. Those stretching exercises will activate certain nerves and also help to become more flexible. But you also want to do balancing exercises to help to activate that cerebellum so you're controlling balance. If you notice that some part of the aging process is a degradation of the cerebellum. So you want to keep that active. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And another set that you can stack that helps the immune system and brain function, magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc will help to boost up your immune system and help with brain function. Magnesium is super important. So make sure you take magnesium in your diet or in your supplementation. And vitamin C and magnesium. This helps with the skin, the immune system, and brain function. Get the max benefits, stack them together. In addition, vitamin C and magnesium will cross-link with the collagen that I have to help with the dermal layer if you drink the filtered water. So drink filtered water, take the vitamin C and magnesium, and take the collagen, and your dermal layer for your skin will improve. Stack this together. This will help with your immune system and your brain function. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And as I've been saying, the crisis that we went through in 2020, many people are going to have early onset of dementia. You better start paying attention to me. I'm the most accurate person on this. There's nobody on the planet that's more accurate than I am on this subject matter. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, we're going to listen to Michael Knowles.
Beat the heat without dressing down. Shut up with Tom Pirrett's linen shirts.
Speaking of uneducated people, really disturbing, alternately disturbing and hilarious segment from CNN on a Yukon college student, very prominent university, the University of Connecticut, a Yukon college student who is illiterate.
In some ways, Alicia Ortiz is living an American dream. The 19-year-old began her freshman year at the University of Connecticut in Hartford this fall. She was excited to study public policy, the culmination of hard work after moving north from Puerto Rico as a child. Do you remember when you first came to Connecticut?
Yes, I remember I was very nervous, but I know it was gonna be better opportunities for me to learn.
But Alicia says those opportunities never came to fruition. Even today, could you read this, or would it take you a long time?
It's impossible. I just see his words everywhere.
Alicia graduated from the Hartford public school system last year, but she says today she is illiterate. She still doesn't know how to read or write.
Shit. The layers of this story, it's almost impossible to process. A girl not only graduated from high school, but is currently enrolled at a prominent college without being able to read or write. In reality, you should not be able to go to college if you are not seriously, uncommonly intelligent and inclined toward education. I know today we live in this time where we're told everyone has to go to college and you'll have a terrible life if you don't go to college. For the first, I don't know, 900 years of education, that is not how we thought about universities. The only people who went to college to receive a liberal arts education were people who were uncommonly intelligent, and that's just the thing you're kind of born with. And on top of that, uncommonly inclined toward education, toward the liberal arts, toward reading great books, toward abstract thinking about subjects that are not directly applicable. There are plenty of people who are super intelligent who are not inclined toward those things, who just want to go out and start a business, who just want to go out and learn a trade, who just want, which is fun. University was not for them. There are all sorts of things you can do with your life. That's what education was for. That's what higher education was for. We have now degraded universities so much that you can matriculate at a major university without knowing how to read. Not just without having read Tolstoy, not just without having read the entire corpus of Shakespeare. No. Without having read ever a single word, because you can't. How did that happen? Well, because she graduated
It's
from
a
high school.
major problem if you are going through high school in the United States and you can't do math, you can't read, you can't write. Education is falling, especially for immigrants that may not necessarily are fluent in English. So it's going to be difficult for them. But she went to a public school. And the public schools, even when you're not an immigrant, are terrible. There are very few public schools are at the par of a private education. There are some, especially in high income level suburbs. But the far majority of the public schools suck. My bone of contention with Michael Knowles here is it's not just about the liberal arts education, it's also about the scientific part of education. Now, everyone has heard, well, there's the humanities and the liberal arts on one side of the spectrum, and the other side of the spectrum is STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But there's a new concept that I think the United States really needs to focus on. It's called MESH, mathematics, engineering, science, and humanities. See, the problem with liberal arts only is you're reading stuff that may not necessarily translate into the real world. You're learning stuff that are good skills, but they aren't vocational enough for a job. STEM, on the other hand, you get all the vocational education. You understand the sciences and you can write code and do something at a corporation, right? But you lose something when you don't have a strong foundation of the liberal arts. This is where MESH comes in, this concept of MESH. All right. So he went to Yale, liberal arts education. Right. So he's going down this whole road of reading all these older books. Yes, it increases your vocabulary. It allows you to think. And if you are in a program where there's lots of reading and writing, it'll allow you to articulate yourself on paper and usually in rhetoric, in oratory. But Michael Knowles doesn't have a very strong vocational education. So you can get vocational education at a very prestigious university. You can also get a education that's in the sciences at a very prestigious university. But the magic is when you blend it together, mesh. He didn't blend it. All right, let's continue. The big point here is the illiteracy that's happening in the United States.
From high school without being able to read. You should be able to read in the second grade. When I was a kid, now I think you're supposed to read in pre-K or something. How did that happen? Because our whole education system is fake. That's how, I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I will tell you exactly the process. But it all comes down to our education system being totally fake. Our whole education system is fake. We flatter ourselves. We say we're the most educated people ever. I remember when I was in high school, a teacher, wonderful teacher actually, said, you know, you guys know more than Aristotle did. You guys know more than Plato did. And it's easy to believe that because we have iPhones and Google and doodads. But we're not actually. We're much less educated. It's very easy to hear politicians say,
no, what it is it's parsing education versus information. We are bombarded by lots of information. We are absorbing lots of information, but do we have the critical thinking skills to be an educated person? No. Then you can layer on top of that, many individuals in our population are below their reading level that they should be. And they're below their mathematics level than they should be. Now, I've taken a lot of math, right? But as I get older, I don't remember some of these more esoteric identities and multivariable calculus anymore. Why? Because I don't do it. I don't use it. But the thing here is that most of the population in the United States never even had that level of ability. Let alone an aging population that starts to lose some of those capabilities. So we have a more informed or more bombarded population with information. We're drowned in information. But do we know much? Well, you don't really know much unless you can use that information, manipulate that information, articulate the information in different modalities, and come up with new knowledge. That's where the problem comes in. We have a society that can't do that anymore. And it's going to get worse when AI does it for you.
are graduating college at a higher rate than any generation before you, the most educated generation ever. No, it's just that college doesn't mean anything anymore, necessarily. Graduating high school doesn't mean anything anymore, necessarily. You know, we hear all of this stuff, but oh, the first generation college graduate, how amazing, what an impressive accomplishment. But unfortunately, it's not. I don't mean to be cruel. I don't really want to yuck anyone's yum or to rain on anyone's parade. But it doesn't mean, a college degree does not mean the same thing it meant 50 years ago. A high school degree doesn't mean the same thing it meant 50 years ago. Through the desire to improve people's lot, regardless and totally untethered from any of the underlying realities of improvement, we've just destroyed those institutions. You cannot improve people through sheer tyranny of will. It's not possible. Oh, I came here for a better life from Puerto Rico. I thought I'd have all this opportunity, but I don't. No, it's not. You did have opportunity. You just didn't. You didn't take it, and it wasn't. You weren't engaged with it. And the educational institutions lowered their standards to try to engage in the social experiment, and it failed everybody. So it's all just pretend. It's all just pretend. I know there's students who are in graduate school now. I've interacted directly and indirectly with some of them. These kids should not have graduated from the 7th grade. They don't know how to write an English sentence. So what does that mean for the rest of us? Does that mean you shouldn't go to college? No, maybe you go to college if you can make something out of it. But it certainly doesn't mean you have to go to college. It doesn't. These things don't mean anything. It is not enough merely to have the appearance of the thing. Some person who can't spell his own name holding up a college degree, smiling like a buffoon on camera. Look at this. I graduated college. No, you didn't. Not really. It doesn't. You got to have the goods, man. You got to have the goods. There's really no shortcut to it. And the social engineers in our government are going to pretend that you can circumvent all of the difficulties to have a good society, but you can't. You actually have to do the stuff. That was a great clip. Now stop, ring the bell, subscribe, do it, please.
Education is a big problem. And I think the correction to it, especially at the higher level, is to have the education blending sciences and liberal arts through the mesh process. Not STEM, not liberal arts, it's mesh. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lignans. This will help with your immune system and your endocrine system. Help to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals. Super important. And ashwagandha root, it helps to control your cortisol levels, helps to bring down those cortisol levels, and helps to control your blood glucose levels. And when you do this, you're boosting up your immune system, you're helping your endocrine system, you're helping your cardiovascular system and brain function. Super important. The magic is stacking these together. And you can also stack them with turmeric. And turmeric helps to bring down inflammation and help to soak up free radicals. When you do this regularly, you're going to notice that your body's in homeostasis and you are slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, get the lignans, the ashwagandha root, and the turmeric. And probiotics, either in the powdered form or the veggie cap form. Probiotics will help to improve your gut biome, your skin will improve, your sleep patterns will improve, your memory will improve over time, your thinking and concentration will improve, just with a good gut biome. And your immune system and inflammation will improve in the gut. A lot of people that don't have a good gut biome, their inflammation is skyrocketed, their immune system is terrible, the mucosal layer is very thin, there's leaky gut syndrome. Well, you can reverse all that by taking a good probiotic. You can improve the mucosal layer and thicken it. Your IgA concentrations will improve, your immune system will improve, and leaky gut syndrome will diminish, and food allergies will diminish. A lot of people don't realize food allergies primarily are through a poor gut. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the probiotics. Make sure you use discount 5 to save some money. All caps, discount 5. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now we're going to go to Victor Davis Hanson. America's universities are in crisis. He published this 2 days ago. So this dovetails really well with what Michael Knowles is saying.
For 250 years, America has been a bastion of freedom. As we look ahead to the next 250, we're reminded that freedom is ours to defend. Today, Alliance Defending Freedom stands in courtrooms across the country to protect those freedoms we cherish: life, free speech, religious freedom, parental rights. These freedoms are at the core of who we are as a nation, and they must be preserved. ADF is approaching a critical fiscal year-end fundraising deadline. Your support today helps ADF defend these freedoms so they may endure for many years to come. Every dollar you give will be doubled thanks to a special matching grant while funds last. Visit joinadf.com/Hanson or text Hanson to 83848 to give today. That's joinadf.com/Hansen or text Hansen to 83848.
Hello, this is Victor Davis.
YouTube Premium is ad-free YouTube and video downloads. So you can watch cooking shows as you eat airplane.
Hello, this is Victor Davis Hansen. There's been a lot of news lately about the university's higher education in crisis. And the universities are now competing for students rather than students competing with each other to get into universities. Maybe the elite universities still, because of their brand name, although they've suffered a great deal on their admissions, reflect that, and their applications are down. They'll always make it 7 or 8 so-called top tier. But most four-year colleges and universities are in a bad strait. And why is that? First of all, it's demography. During the 1960s, the fertility rate reached in 1960 about 3.6 children per family. It's recovered a little bit the last 3 years, but it's 1.7.
Now think about that. 3.6 to 1.7 for the fertility rate. Now, a big part of that is killing your fetuses since 1972 in the tune of about 65 million. Maybe closer to 70 million. That's one issue. The other issue is the cost of living has skyrocketed since the 1990s. Now, what's the reason why from the 1960s to the 1990s, there was somewhat of stability economically? Someone could have a good job, be at that job for many years. There was job stability. There wasn't this moving from one job to another. There was a better social contract between the corporation and the employee back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. But once NAFTA happened, and there was this big surge in globalization, to just get by, you needed to have a dual income. So less children. The cost of living started to increase. And it started to erode. Now, from a sociological aspect, there was also this erosion of God, country, and family. This postmodernism that came out in the 1960s, but didn't take really hold until later decades. But this postmodern philosophy of anything goes, everything's relative, that was promulgated at the universities during the baby boomers and during the Vietnam era led to the problems that we have today. Because in a postmodern ethic, God doesn't matter because it's all relative. Patriotism doesn't matter. It's all relative. Family creation, family unit doesn't matter. It's all relative. And when you erode those pillars, you're getting to the bedrock and chipping away at the bedrock of the Enlightenment. And don't be surprised that your society starts to have problems. If you look at a society that's growing, it usually has a good fertility rate. It has a high fertility rate, like 4, 5, 7, 8. And there is this pulse that takes place. They're having all these children, and all of a sudden, there's a major expansion economically, especially when they get into their 20s and 30s, 40s. But we don't have that. We don't have that pulse because we've aborted 65 million fetuses since 1972.
So the cohort of 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-olds is only about, it's less than half.
Yep.
So they are competing for a much smaller pool of young people. The second thing that's really turned people off is the tuition has increased the last 50 years 3 times more than the annual rate of inflation. Now, why is that? Mostly it is because of administrative bloat. Where I work
It's a
at Stanford
combination.
University.
It's a combination of administrative bloat and the need to get donors to help support the university. Well, they need to build a new building. Well, to build a new building, you have to procure the land. And you have to get a mortgage on building the building and the construction costs and the maintenance costs. And every time they get a new donor, big money, 300 million, 500 million, or 50 million, or whatever, it actually is more expensive for the university because they have to build that building. So short term, they get this donation that's large, but they're expanding the university that leads to higher costs in the long run. So that's another component to this. The universities need to shrink, not grow. I mean, Harvard is expanding its university, and it's had this plan for over 20 years. But they really should think hard. Perhaps they should shrink the university, not grow it.
Wall Street Journal now recently suggested that if you count graduate and undergraduates at Stanford and you count administrators and their staff, there is roughly one administrator or staffer for every student. This is because the university became in loco parentis. It said, I am a parent and I'm going to monitor the 360-degree, 24/7 life of a student. If he's not happy, we're going to deal with it. If somebody accuses you of sexual harassment, we're going to deal with everything. And we're going to try to also be political. Our job is not disinterested, inducted in education. It is to turn out left-wing people who can offer an antithesis to the family, nuclear family, the community.
See, this is Victor Hansen is stating what I've been saying for 3 years. Almost 3 years, almost daily. All right? God, country, and family. But he phrases it differently. Family, community, religion. Because those are the pillars that are on the foundation of the Enlightenment.
The religion, etc. We believe society is biased with corporations and family and religion, and we're going to offer a antithesis. That turned off people, believe me. Professors themselves are unique in American life. Nobody else has the same conditions of employment. After 6 years, they get tenured. Outside the exclusive schools, it's almost automatic. Where I worked at the CSU, I think 90% of assistant professors got tenure. Release time is very common now that you can say, oh, I want to be a part-time administrator, or I am tutoring, or I have a special project, and you can get a reduced teaching load. Remember that the teaching load has gone way down. In most colleges, it's between 2 and 4 courses a year. Maybe not the CSU, but even CSU has gone down on many campuses that's the California State University system, the largest in the world, from 4 classes to 3 classes a semester. And part of the way that they finesse that was when you increase the administrative budget and you increase the release time for full-time faculty and decrease the teaching, you hire part-time temporary lecturers and you exploit them. You pay them about 40% per class what you would pay a full or associate professor. You don't really give them the same type of benefits. And at some universities, the number of courses, the percentage of courses that are taught by part-time exploited lecturers is getting up to 40 and even 45%. Another thing that turned the public off about these universities, they grant gouge. We're starting to learn that, say, on NIH grants, many of these universities were charging not 10 or 15% commission,
30,
but 40%, even higher. In other words,
this is the problem at Harvard. This is the reason why Harvard was having a hissy when Trump pulled their grants. The administration thought that they could budget about $2 billion worth of grants into the system. where about 60 to 70% of it would actually go to the research, and 30% were going to go to administration. Well, when you pull that, there's a major hole in the administrative budget. And so now these universities are having hissy fit, and then they say, well, you're destroying science and you're going to prevent the cure for cancer and all this stuff. Yet there are universities that have less of a gouge, less charging of administration. Why don't I give those universities the grant? Most Carnegie 1 and Carnegie 2 research level publications are not coming from the Ivy League. They're coming from state universities.
$1 million grant from the federal government, a university would step in and say, well, you're using your office or your phone or your lab or something. We want 40% of it. And they use that because the whole system is financially unsound.
Yep.
Financially unsound, largely because, again, of administrative bloat and the creation of centers and programs that have nothing to do with education, but form a huge overhead. Another thing that got people very worried is another way they financed this debt, expanded their administrators, cut back on teaching, was they brought in over 1 million foreign students. And unlike American students, there are no scholarships, there are no discounts. Foreign students pay the premium, if not a little bit higher rate of inflation. Now, the problem with that of tuition, the problem with that is when you bring in 300,000 students from China or over 200,000 from the illiberal Middle East, and when you look at the origin of most of these students, they are from autocratic and illiberal places in Africa, Asia, the Western Hemisphere, particularly the Middle East and China. Then you start to politicize the student body. And you can see what had happened after October 7th. We had enormous demonstrations, often led by foreign students, chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's essentially code for destroying the state of Israel. And we had violent demonstrations, often led by people from the Middle East. And of course, the FBI suggests 1 to 5% of Chinese students are actively engaged in espionage. The public knows this, and they're not fond of that idea, that sometimes their children don't get into school because the universities are letting in foreign students because they pay a premium. DEI did damage, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The idea that the universities, despite state referenda and Supreme Court decisions, the Civil Rights Acts, they were deliberately, consciously, insidiously using race as a barometer to admit people, to hire people, to retain people, to promote people on the basis of their superficial appearance, their sexual orientation, or their gender. It was entirely anti-meritocratic. It was like the Soviet commissar system. It was like the McCarthy period. If you wanted to get a job at a university, you had to fill out, in most cases, a diversity statement. And believe me, if you wrote on that diversity statement, honestly, I believe that DEI is anti-meritocratic, you were not going to be hired. There's another reason that these universities are in crisis. The federal government came in and guaranteed student loans. Once they did that, the universities jacked up the rate of tuition, as I said, 3 times higher on an annual basis than the inflation rate. So the government came in and said, you guys can loan students money and we will back it up. So they will pay you back with federally guaranteed dollars. And we know now that there's a 30 to 35% non-compliance rate, that people are either late or have defaulted. And so when you have 1.7 trillion in debt And you see that the debt is increasing because the students are not graduating in 4 years. The average graduation now is 6 years. About 30 to 40% of people who enter college do not ever graduate, but the whole thing is subsidized by loans from banks that are guaranteed by the federal government, and that gave a green light for universities to offer these crazy courses that nobody wants: peace studies, race studies, black studies, environmental studies, except the dash studies, because the students took it and the government paid for it. And nobody worried about whether they graduated or whether the employers found a well-educated and empirical product coming out with a BA. Finally, we're short a couple of million plumbers, electricians, blue-collar carpenters, sheetrockers, roofers. These are very important to the economy of the United States. But when these universities said, come to us, and maybe even if you don't graduate, 40% of you, or if those who do average 6 years, and even though you're going to run up a big debt, you can take psych and sociology. It's a good time to kind of float around, live in your basement, have a good time in your 20s. But the economy answered back, we're wasting kids' formative years in the 20s. We need master electrician. We need oil workers. We need skilled carpenters. And the irony is, if you graduate with a bachelor's degree in psychology or sociology versus you are a master electrician at the age of 22, the electrician these days is going to be making $100,000 plus. And the sociology BA, or the person with, I don't know, 2 or 3 years of psychology, is either going to be unemployed or not using that education at all in his employment. Or if he is hired, he will be making half of what the electrician or the roofer or the carpenter makes. Add it all up, and the universities are in bad shape, and they're in desperate need of coerced reform because they will not reform on their own. Thank you very much, Mr. Davis Hanson, for the daily statement.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has the minerals, the vitamins, and the other supplements that you need to take regularly to help slow down the aging process. This will focus on brain function, musculature, energy levels. It'll help to boost up your immune system and your endocrine system, help with your cardiovascular health, and slow down the aging process. Soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation. This is a great supplement to take regularly. And again, it has a very comprehensive compound profile. This is a month supply. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, milk. I put it in hummus, but take it every day. It's a great way to get the multivitamins and the minerals and the other compounds to help to slow down the aging process and to get healthy. It's very comprehensive. Take it every day. Omega-3 brings down systemic inflammation and helps you to control your lipid profile. And by controlling your lipid profile, you're going to reduce plaque formation. Omega-3 helps to bring down LDL levels, increase your HDL levels, and also help to prevent your blood cells from sticking. All right, it reduces the overclock. Vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex, the first 4 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain. That means that your mitochondria will produce more ATP. You'll have more energy. Vitamin B complex revs up your cellular metabolism. And vitamin B complex, through B12, helps to protect your neurons. If you're 40 years of age or older, make sure you take vitamin B complex. And Good Night Formula. Good Night Formula has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. It allows you to get into the 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. That will help to detoxify your central nervous system, which is very important to make sure that you're getting rid of plaques and tau. It'll allow you to be well rested and consolidate memory. So your brain function will improve. And everyone knows that if you get proper sleep, you slow down the aging process. So please go to my store and get the Good Night Formula. And lastly, structural nano silver lozenges. You can get it in orange splash and vitamin C and Manuka honey. These are perfect for the allergy season, the cold season, even when you're cleaning the house, or you're in the yard, or you're in the garage cleaning, or the basement. Take them. What it'll do is help them neutralize. If you're starting to get a sore throat, make sure you take them right away. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Manuka honey or the orange splash structural nano silver lozenges. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now we're gonna go over the Times News. They're interviewing Andrew Ross Sorkin. He wrote Too Big to Fail and the 1929 Crash. I have not read the 1929 Crash book from Sorkin. I have read Too Big to Fail, which talks about the Lehman crash. He's warning that we're getting close to a pre-crash bubble.
And they're doing it at graduation ceremonies, so yeah.
And so that I think is very different than, I don't think they were booing the automobile or booing radio in 1929. They all wanted a piece of it.
In 1929, Wall Street crashed. It was a crisis that reshaped politics, economics, and society for decades. Nearly a century later, as investors pour trillions into artificial intelligence and the world grapples with war, debt, and political instability, other lessons from 1929 that we are still ignoring. Well, Andrew Ross Sorkin is a financial columnist for the New York Times, co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box, and co-creator of TV's Billions. And his book, 1929, considers what those lessons might be. Andrew, welcome to Times Radio.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Look, in the years before the crash, that crash, people were optimistic, they were confident, and they were convinced that a new era was arriving. How similar is the excitement today around AI?
Feels kind of similar, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, back in the 20s, it was the automobile, it was radio. I mean, there was a company called RCA, which was the NVIDIA of its time. And people were so excited about what they thought the future was going to bring them. And I think it's very similar in a way, from a technological standpoint, to what we all think may happen to the world with AI. There's one distinction between AI and those technologies, though. The car and, radio were not, I mean, they were going to put maybe the, people on horseback out of business. But AI potentially could put us all out of business. So it's a very interesting sort of juxtaposition when you think about, I think about AI and I think, are we in an AI bubble? That feels similar to the 1920s, yes. But then I also think about what happens in success with AI, and to justify these sky-high prices, valuations of these companies, they have to create extraordinary productivity. Well, where's productivity come from? It means you have to, do more, oftentimes with less.
And we are the less.
We are the less. We are the less.
I guess the difference was back then, the people who were under threat by the new technology were not the same people whose job it was to think about the threat from the new technology. Exactly. So it's a demographic thing.
I think it's a demographic thing. And by the way, you're seeing it now. I mean, interestingly, politically, I think, or even around the world, young people are increasingly against this new technology.
They're booing it. I mean, they're booing it at graduation ceremonies. So, yeah.
And so that, I think, is very different than, I don't think they were booing the automobile or booing radio in 1929. They all wanted a piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, so something I've noticed, though, is when I speak to, I guess, kind of my peers, professionals, middle-aged professionals, they are extremely nervous about the rise of AI and what it means for them. When I speak to the boss class, whether they're in film or in music or in media or in banking, they're extremely optimistic. They feel this is going to make them a lot of money
because it's going to cut out all of the costs.
Think about all of us.
Well, think about if you're going to make a film that used to have a cast of and crew of 200, 300 people, and you could somehow do that with 2 or 3 people around a laptop. Yeah. I mean, that's extraordinary. And the problem or the challenge that I think we're all going to face is the concentration of wealth, which is to say, if AI is successful, does it help everybody, or does it really help an even tighter group of people than we already have? And we already have extraordinary wealth inequality.
We'll come to that in a moment. But is one big difference there then between now and 1929 just the level of popular optimism? That people aren't waking up in the morning and thinking, "Hey, life's about to get amazing," which I guess maybe they were before that crash.
I think in the 1920s, people thought life was about to get amazing, but I also think that they were therefore jumping into the stock market, with both feet. And this was for the first time that, ordinary people could invest in the stock market, and they were doing it with incredible amount of borrowing. The banks, these brokerage houses, were handing you, you'd walk in, you'd give them $1, they would loan you $10 for every dollar you gave them. And so people were jumping in the same way, in truth, that's happening today. Now, it's not happening with loans of this sort of extraordinary magnitude, this 10 to 1, but the excitement in the stock market right now is as real as it's ever been. I mean, you can look at the SpaceX IPO, which of course has an element of AI embedded in the right middle of Anthropic and OpenAI. They're saying $1 trillion for Anthropic. With OpenAI potentially going public later this year. So there's the popular conception and then the investor view of all of this. And the investor view of all of this is to the moon.
I mean, so on the investor side of things, it'd be one thing.
I personally think that AI, when fully implemented in the society, is increasing the probability of aggregate demand shift, not to the positive, but to the negative, because there's going to be more people not working as much or unemployed, and therefore their spending will go down. And that aggregate demand is going to continue to spiral down. Now, that doesn't mean that it starts that way. As companies become more efficient with AI, they are going to have better revenues, less expenses. Their stock price will be bid up. Investors and the managers, the managerial class, will make money doing this. But then all of a sudden, as more companies do this, the unemployment rate will start to tick up. The U3 unemployment rate will go up. And then you'll also start seeing the U6 unemployment rate going up. And that's the beginnings of the aggregate demand shift starting to go down in the spiral. And when people stop buying products, then the stock prices will be hurt and it'll start to fall. And there's going to be this movement in the economy where things will start to deflate. Now, when this happens, and this is going to happen in mass, there's going to be a push politically to regulate and to try to push aggregate demand back up. So there may be serious regulation of AI, but it's not going to happen until after this aggregate demand shift downward.
It was just, if it was amorphous investing, if it's investing in the share price and the share price is going up, you're also worried about the amount of money actually going into real stuff, into chips, into data centers, into infrastructure. What worries you there?
Well, I think there's a question about how it's being financed. There's a lot of debt around all of this. So you have companies, even like Google, which has extraordinary capacity to make money, and they do make it, tens of billions of dollars. They are spending extraordinary money by taking out loans. Other people, Meta, are taking loans. We often don't focus on it, but the entire sort of energy complex.
Think about it. So they could absorb, if they didn't have the loans, if they didn't have the liabilities on the balance sheet, they'd be able to absorb that aggregate demand shift, these companies that are taking out these loans. But when the aggregate demand shift happens and less people are buying, they still have those loans. And so now the banks are exposed. The bondholders are exposed. The bond yields are exposed. This is starting to sound a little bit like a crash coming.
Powering these data centers, there's a huge amount of debt around that. The construction companies, the real estate companies. So I think what we have to watch for more than anything is debt. Debt is the thing that is it is the match that lights the fire of every financial crisis. It's not just the promise of a new technology. It is how it's being financed, how transparent or not that ultimately is. And right now, by the way, I think we're lacking that full disclosure, that full transparency. So those are the things that I worry about.
How much do you worry about the next new technology? All the stuff that billions upon billions are being spent on now are.
Before we continue, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the cleanse or the Max 35 or Max 14. Take a teaspoon a day every day, swish in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds and swallow it. What this will do is improve your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, help the health of your epithelial lining, and maintain a mucosal barrier and boost up your innate immune system. Take it every day to help slow down the aging process and to neutralize. Very important during the allergy season, but also in the cold season. But do this every day. I've been doing this for over 6 years, teaspoon a day, every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And I also have structural nail silver toothpaste. This toothpaste doesn't have any fluoride, no fluoride in the toothpaste. It's made with structural nail silver to help to whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce inflammation, help the health of your gum line, and neutralize. And that's super important, especially during the cold season. But use this every day. Get a few tubes of this for your household. It's a very high quality toothpaste. Use it every day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and make sure you use discount 5.
In a year, obsolete. I mean, you look at, for example, you look at what I forget the name, what the Chinese AI seem to be doing with a fraction of the resources of
like DeepSeek.
Yes, DeepSeek, precisely. How worried are you about suddenly, you've got all these companies, they're investing so much money into all this infrastructure, and oh look, this infrastructure is obsolete.
So I'm not so convinced that the infrastructure is going to be obsolete so quickly. I do think there will be, and we should hope for, a great technological breakthrough that makes all of this that much more efficient so that you don't need more and more and more data centers. There should be some kind of limit at some point to this, or at least a slowing of this. Otherwise, the capital expenditures will just continue apace, and the economics of this really won't make any sense. But I do think the large language models will get more efficient. I imagine some of the chips may get significantly more efficient. But then again, you think about a SpaceX, and part of the entire vision of that company is this idea they're going to put data centers in space, and that there'll be a need to put data centers in space. Maybe we won't have that need. Maybe all the processing power will be done on this phone that I'm holding right here.
So look, I mean, I can understand there'll be people who are thinking, sure, I'm worried about AI. Sure, I'm worried about my job ceasing to exist, about whatever happens there. And I suppose nebulously, I'm worried about whatever happens with those stock market guys and whatever they're doing. If we're really worried about a bursting bubble, effectively, is what we're talking about, how does that affect the little guy? Why should the little guy be concerned about
massive
that?
unemployment?
I never like to call the little guy.
Talking to me, I am the little guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm a little guy too in this regard. But I think the larger implication is that any time we have a financial crisis, it ultimately results in what's called a contraction of credit. Means that banks stop making loans. It means that the cost of the loans you do have goes even higher. So if you have a credit card...
Now I'm worried. I'm talking about my mortgage. Yeah.
I'm talking about your mortgage. I'm talking about your credit card payments and the interest that they're going to charge you on those things. If there is a real contraction in the economy, if in fact the banks and some of these what are called private credit funds get burned on these AI investments, it means they're going to be less likely to lend to other people. Less lending typically means fewer jobs. It means higher rates. It means a harder opportunity to get that mortgage. Those are the real implications, and that's why it has a demonstrable impact on the entire economy, whether you have anything to do with AI or not.
Cheery. So look, when it comes to finance itself, the other sort of, I guess, the other revolution that's going on is the cryptocurrency revolution.
Yes.
Is that as worrying as AI? Is it the same worry? Should we align these worries together? How worried are you about that? And what's the point? Is it similar to the sort of democratization of finance that happened in the 1920s?
I don't fully connect it, but I will say this. This phrase democratization of finance was used repeatedly over and over again in the 1920s. Anytime they would introduce a new product to the public, they would sort of wrap it in the flag of we're democratizing finance.
They're talking to the little guy.
They're talking to the little guy. And they're giving you an opportunity that you otherwise didn't have. You're having now your shot at the lottery ticket. And I see a whole number of products, crypto being one of them. There's efforts now to make private equity and venture capital and other kinds of investments available to the quote unquote little guy. Every time we introduce new products into the market like this, invariably they do not come with the safeguards, with the guardrails that you ultimately want. And it's only until we go over the cliff, till we tip over, before somebody says, typically regulators, we can't do it like this anymore. And so that's my worry. It's not to say, by the way, that some of these products may be good products long term. They may very well be. And I think actually there's a lot of innovation happening in the world of finance. And that's all for the good.
Minsky wrote a book about, this is the economist Minsky, there are other Minskys out there, but the economist Minsky wrote a book about financial engineering and financial products that are exotic at first. There's a big rush into them. There's over leveraging, not fully understanding some of the negative externalities of that financial engineered product, and then a bust. But then after they come out of that doldrum, those exotic products end up becoming vanilla products, something that's used all the time. And there's this cycle of financial engineered products that are exotic, crash, they turn, there's some regulation, there's more understanding of how to use them appropriately, and they become commonplace. And I think we're in that first phase in dealing with ETFs that are tied to private equity and private credit. Now, the problem is that the private equity companies are going to try to use this money to further their endeavors of destroying companies. Pay attention to what's happening in the news. Yum Brands used to own Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut is being sold to two different private equity companies. The Pizza Hut that's in Asia is being sold to a holding company in China. And then there is, I think it's called Long Range Capital in the United States. They're a private equity company. And what's going to happen is that they're buying the company. I don't know the full structure deal, but it's probably going to be set up like this. They're going to put probably 20 or 30% cash into the company from Long Range Capital. Then they're going to use the assets of Pizza Hut to take a loan out. Banks are going to give the loan to them. And Long Range Capital now has done a leverage buyout. Now they own Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut will have to pay Long Range Capital management fees and pay the loan to the bank. Now, Pizza Hut will probably have some sort of restructuring to reduce costs and improve service or improve the top line. And when that does happen, then Long Range Capital will go and force Pizza Hut to take more loans out. And those loans will help pay back the original 20 or 30% invested into Pizza Hut. So the private equity company gets their money back. They're getting the management fee annually, and they're going to get some sort of dividend paid to the shareholders through the new loans that Pizza Hut took on, which means that there's further debt that Pizza Hut will have, and then they'll have to file for bankruptcy. This is exactly what happened with J. Crew. This is exactly what happened with other companies that private equity came into and destroyed. But the whole ETF private equity funding mechanism now in private credit is helping speed the process of destroying legitimate companies. And there's a hollowing out. And quality will start to go down, either in this case, the restaurant. But why do you think that there's such great brands where the actual product material, like clothing, apparel, the quality of the cotton went down? Because they had to pay for loans that were higher, that this debt that they incurred because of a private equity company coming in and buying them out. They had to reduce the quality of the cotton in their products to be able to make payments on these loans. So the quality of goods are going down too. Private equity is dangerous, and it should be heavily regulated. And this is where maybe Senator Warren is right. Now, she's a liberal, she's a crazy liberal, but perhaps she's saying something that's really important. Private equity is destroying companies. Now, it doesn't mean all the time, but they need to be heavily regulated where they can't load a company up with debt and then pay themselves back through that loan, get their money back and a dividend payment. That needs to be regulated.
Problem is that when those things happen, the people who are building those products are never saying, you know what, I'm gonna
wait a minute.
I'm not gonna let everybody participate, or I'm gonna put limits on their ability to participate.
But see, that's what's so interesting about where we are now politically. I say where we are now, in the United States particularly, is that when these sorts of things began, when the tech boom started, be it AI or anything else, when cryptocurrency began, it was set against, it was basically a revolution against government, right? It was a tech revolution against government. It was trying to do things that government wouldn't allow. Whereas now you've got a White House very much that is leaning in, that is trying to remove barriers. Is that all the more scary?
Well, you're watching the guardrails come down. I mean, you can see it with your own eyes. It's happening every day. The regulators are genuinely leaning into all of this. And so that is worrisome. Look, here's the part that I wrestle with, and I'm curious where you land. I probably sound relatively paternalistic about how we should think about the world of finance and the little guy. I often get emails and text messages and notes on social media from the quote little guy all the time that are saying, Sorkin, stop trying to protect me, man.
Yeah, sure.
Don't protect me. I want an opportunity. I want the lottery ticket. And by the way, when you say you're protecting me, you're really not protecting me. You're protecting the man.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so I don't write about finance, but I write about tech, and it's exactly that dynamic.
And so
I'm like someone needs to save you guys, and they're like, get out of the way.
And so I wrestle with what the right answer is. What I have found, though, having written these books and covered these worlds for so long, is everybody wants a chance at the lottery ticket until the lottery ticket goes wrong, and most of the time the lottery ticket does go wrong. And when it does, then the fingers and blame game begins. And nobody blames themselves. By the way, interestingly, 1929, you go back and you read the diaries of people who lost money in 1929. They didn't blame others. They actually blamed themselves. They would write diary entries to themselves saying, I can't believe I did this. What a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. It was my fault. I can't believe I did this to my family, blah, 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 blah. it was almost the opposite of the kind of way we live today, where, you know, post 2008, it was the banker's fault, it was the regulator's fault, it was the lawyer's fault. Nobody said, oh, maybe I shouldn't have. So it's taken on the loan.
It's not just going to be a crash, we're going to be snowflakes about it. In sort of past periods of technological revolution, certainly going back to the 20s, there was a lot of fear that, I mean, you go back to the loom, the printing press. Right? There was a lot of fear that this is going to take away jobs. In the end, it sort of, you know, end up vastly creating new industries, create the industrial revolution, and so on. What a lot of people today would say is, okay, you're naysayers about AI. You're saying it's going to take all our jobs. You're saying it's going to wipe out white collar employment. Actually, new jobs will come of the like that you could scarcely yet imagine. How do you respond to that argument? Which you must have heard.
Oh, I've heard it all the time. And by the way,
some industries are going to grow. Others are going to shrink. Then it's about net. And the net, I think, will be aggregate demand shift to the negative. There will be more unemployment. When you have Sam Altman saying, we're going to give you the 40-hour work week, or now we're going to go to a 4-day work week, or maybe a 3-day work week, well, that means that your income level is going to go down. How are you going to pay your debt? See, debt is more sticky than your actual number of hours worked. So how do you pay down the debt when you're working less hours? Therefore, aggregate demand is going to continue to go down and down and down and down. The net job creation is going to be negative, not positive. Once it gets past a certain threshold point, we're not there yet. The threshold point of AI being implemented at these corporation levels, we're a little ways away, maybe 5 years away. Now, some companies won't even need it. You know, some companies won't need to use AI. Many small businesses don't really need AI, but their customers are going to have less hours worked or no employment and no longer buy your products. So everyone's going to be affected.
It may ultimately be right, but I have to imagine there's going to be a transition period at a minimum. And the idea, you know, right now we're talking about AI in the form of you know, a chat bot that I can talk to on a phone or a computer. We haven't really talked about what humanoid robots could do. And, you know, if they're controlled by AI. So there's a lot of things that you start to say to yourself, wow, you'd have to create a lot of jobs.
So wait, yeah, exactly. All these jobs, every job can be eliminated. Once you get to humanoid robots and agentic AI implemented at the corporate level, just about every job out there can be eliminated. So there's going to need to be social regulation on this.
A lot of completely new, different kinds of jobs. And can the robot do it better than a human? Interestingly, I don't know if you followed what's happening with mammograms.
No.
So there was a view that, you know, the first people who were going to lose their jobs were radiologists who dealt with mammograms because AI can read mammograms better than a human eye. There are more radiologists doing mammograms today than ever before. There's more jobs. Mm-hmm. And you might say, well, why is that?
Well, first, there's regulation. At the moment, you have to have a human looking at it. Now, because of the technology, it's being offered, prescribed more often as diagnostics. And because of that, the workload is higher. But why do you need more radiologists? Why are the radiologists' workload increasing? Because it's regulated. You have to have a human doing it.
Well, what's happened? The price of mammograms has come down so tremendously that more women happily are getting mammograms, and they still need people to communicate with patients about what the result of the mammogram is. Mm-hmm. So again, maybe we'll find out that there really are more jobs.
the price is going down. It's being offered more often, but there's the regulation. The radiologist has to, well, there's two types of radiologists. You have the radiologist that's actually running the machine, and you have the radiologist that's reading the actual scan. Now, in some clinics, it's the same person. In other clinics, it may be divided up, especially if they have a large organization. So you have to have a human looking at it to sign off on it. And you have to have someone running the machine. Now, the machine could be run by a humanoid. You could train a robot to do what they do. All right, so it's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to need a radiologist to run the machine. Now, there's a regulation that states that you have to have someone reading it. I don't believe there's a regulation of who actually runs the machine has to be a human. But there might be, because it might have to be you have to go through a certification and, you know, a medical certification. So it's possible that a human has to run the machine too. But that's because of a regulatory framework. But you take away that regulatory framework, and the AI could read the material, sign off on the material, not have a human involved, have a humanoid run the machine, and no human is involved. And then your physician is taking that. Your radiologist doesn't talk to you. It's your general physician who actually wrote the order to have you go to radiology. So your general physician is going to describe to you what the results are and come up with some sort of treatment plan if something needs to happen. Most of this is screening anyway, so there's nothing to worry about. So that's good. But the thing is that AI is so good at looking at results that it can actually put it in layman terms, and an email could be sent to you to describe what the results were. And the physician doesn't need to do anything. So all the technology is there where you don't need the physician to tell you about it. You technically don't need a human to run the radiology machine, the CT or PET or whatever machine. You can have a humanoid actually running the radiology equipment. And technically, the AI can read the scan without the human being. But all of this is maintained in terms of employment, human employment, because of a regulatory framework, regulation. So if it's good for the physicians to have a regulatory framework, then it sure as hell should be good for a regulatory framework for the white-collar worker in offices. If not, then everyone should have the same level. You either have regulatory framework to protect your jobs or no regulatory framework to protect no one's job.
Side, but I'm skeptical.
We talked about the focus of wealth with AI, the way that wealth gets narrower, and ever smaller, narrower group of people end up having huge wealth, and with wealth, of course, comes power. And I'm interested in whether you foresee through this a looming democratic crisis as well, because I mean, tech investors.
Look, I would argue we're already the looming crisis is here.
You read my column last week.
The looming crisis is here. The amount of money that is effectively buying influence in Washington is demonstrable. We've seen it already. And I can't even imagine how we get out of that doom loop. Meaning, I can't ever imagine that any of the individuals who are currently using their money to influence the government are ever going to do it to undo their own influence. And so the oligarchy, the plutocracy, is only going to manifest itself and get larger. And what is that going to do ultimately to politics and the polarization?
Well, I mean, do you foresee I don't know, like revolutionary feeling because of that. I mean,
well, there are people like Ray Dalio, who's a famed investor who believes that we are on the cusp of, if not already at this moment of sort of civil unrest that's going to turn into some kind of civil war. I can't speak to that. I don't know, but I do think that the polarization is likely to get worse, not better.
So, I mean, you've spent years interviewing some of the most sort of powerful people in technology. You had a role in Billions and showing us what these people are like. Something that fascinated me from Billions, fascinates me from your other work as well, is the question of, do you like these guys? Do you feel, do you trust them? Do you like them are different questions? But I guess I want to ask both those questions.
So I have great empathy for anyone. One of the things that I have learned over the years is no matter how much money you have in your bank account or what title's in your business card, it's not emotional armor.
Mm-hmm.
So I always find in my role as a journalist, to some degree, when I'm reporting, and this is different than columnizing with an opinion, but when I'm reporting, my job is to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily where I want them to be or where you may want them to be, but where they are. And so when you say, do I like them? I think there are aspects and things about a lot of them that I think are fascinating and interesting and great. And there are other elements where I say to myself, I cannot believe that the moral compass is this or that or what have you. So that's probably where I land. It's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody at all. But I also, look, there's so many things about these individuals that I admire. Some of them created great, revolutionary products, which we use, in our lives and change, have authentically changed our world.
How often are they frightened? How often are they frightened about what they've created and where it might be leading?
Well, what's so interesting to me is that you talk to a Sam Altman who runs OpenAI, or a Dario Amodei who runs Anthropic, and both of them, I think, there's a level of being frightened because I think they understand the power of the technology in a way perhaps maybe others don't. I don't think that most of the other individuals that I have covered over the years are frightened of what they've created. I don't think, I just interviewed Jeff Bezos a couple weeks ago. I don't think that Jeff Bezos is frightened of what Amazon has done. I think he thinks that Amazon has, and I think it's true and authentic, has changed the world in so many different ways. I think for the better for a lot of it, but obviously it's cost workers and stores, and it changed the way we shop. I don't know what he thinks about. I don't think he would think that Blue Origin is dangerous per se to humankind.
No, but he might think the collapse of the high street is dangerous to humankind. He might think the collapse of physical shopping,
right,
the replacement of humans in his warehouses by robots.
Look, I actually think that Jeff Bezos does have a deep appreciation for sort of the issues that all of this creates. I don't know if he has an answer to it, and I think that he does think that it's better, the opportunity for you to be able to shop on your phone and get it this afternoon, and to be able to get it into places and be able to get products or even sell products from places that you could never do that 10 years ago. That's a better world today than it is before. But I think he's very cognizant of what the costs are on the other end.
Look, finally then, and I'm aware no one can really answer this question, but you can probably answer it better than most. What does the world look like in 10 years' time? What has this done to our politics? What has this done to our money? What has this done to our lives? Are we having this conversation, or is one robot chatting to another one?
No, we're going to be having this conversation. We may be lamenting what's happening. I think that the inequality piece, unless rectified through some kind of real shifts in government policy, are going to be real. I think we're going to be having a big conversation of what that transition looks like in terms of what AI is doing to jobs and where the future of jobs really lies. I think that actually it may come for some white-collar jobs before it comes for certain blue-collar jobs. And I think we're going to have a bigger conversation about wealth and taxes, and what inequality is. And I think the bigger issue is going to be the dignity of work ultimately. I get great satisfaction from working. I have a family, I love my kids, I love my wife, but I really enjoy working. I do. And I think a lot of people in their own way, depending on, some people may not love their job as much as I do, but I think if we lose that, that is the thing that could change the conversation we'll be having a decade from now.
Andrew Russell, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
I personally think that the aggregate demand is going to shift. It's going to get worse. People are going to be scared, and there will be revolution. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor. Your cells need vitamin D3 to help to express genes. Super important to take. Vitamin D3 also helps the cardiovascular health. And vitamin D3 helps with bone density, helps to absorb calcium and deposit new bone matrix. And vitamin D3 helps your immune system by getting rid of cells that are infected. It helps cells to go into apoptosis. Vitamin D3, super important to take. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression. It helps the basal layer of your skin to improve your skin. This stacks really well with C60. Resveratrol also soaks up free radicals and helps to boost up energy levels, helps the health of the mitochondria. So please go to my store and get resveratrol. Digestive enzyme complex helps to reduce the load on your pancreas. It helps you to digest proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. And digestive enzyme complex has bromelain, which helps to break up clots. Super important. So please go to my store, take digestive enzyme complex, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. And lastly, I have structural nail silver gels. You can get the quick dispenser version called Renew or the tube version. Use it the same way. They're dual purpose. If you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, put it on the lesion. It'll help to heal it quicker. You can use it as a daily skincare to improve your skin. And if you have allergies, lightly coat your nostrils. It'll help to reduce the allergen and to neutralize the allergen when you're outside. During the cold season, put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your ears, around your mouth, around your nose. Lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5.5 hours. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nail silver gel. Make sure you use discount 5. Now let's listen to Economic War by Fox Business. Report shows AI cut 97,000 American jobs last month. Still think that everything is going to be copacetic?
The AI infrastructure build out, one of the largest capital spending booms we've ever seen. The biggest technology companies in America are expected to spend up to $750 billion this year alone on the AI build out. But of course, there are new concerns over whether everyday workers will be keeping their jobs or losing their jobs to AI, as AI employment is on the rise. A new ADP study finds just 22% of workers believe their jobs are safe from automation. Joining me now is Global Advisor to CEOs and Corporate Boards, Ram Charan. Ram, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here. What's your take on this AI build-out story and the impact on jobs?
Maria, thank you very much. Number one, for every company, do the AI and make your company better. You're going to lose some jobs now. If you don't do, you will lose more jobs. It's a reality. Confront it. Learn how to do it. Some 80% people in the companies still don't know how to do that. The ones I am doing is that have it led by the CEO, confront the reality, define exactly what has to be done, because it is going to be a vehicle to create growth that is profitable and capital efficient. We have to compete globally. There's no choice. Don't do it. You will pay the penalty. More jobs will be lost, and you will be left behind permanently.
Yeah. Well, look, there's pushback by some because it's, not in my backyard, right? People don't want data centers in their backyard. And, it's not just the fear around jobs, but it's also the fear around what that's going to mean for their electricity, what's it going to mean for their neighborhood. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos sounding the alarm on AI's impact to the jobs market. He thinks it will create a shortage of labor rather than a replacement of human labor. We've got one report showing that more than 97,000 American job cuts last month were because of AI, Ram. So you're saying companies have to figure out how to capitalize on AI and not run from it.
And I'm saying if you don't, you will have to do it more in the future because the company won't be around. Now start right away to train people for the new needs of the AI-driven actions to be taken. We will always have a service business. We will always have manufacturing of products. Where you need a lot of AI, we're going to need people with higher skills. Start the program now. Don't depend on the government, but do talk to your state governments. It will create jobs. Go to work and start fretting.
Yeah. Ram, I want to get back to something that you told us the last time you were with us, and we were talking about President Trump's agenda, and that agenda includes getting corporate America to understand these are all national security issues. You've got to build it here. We cannot rely on China for our prescription drugs and Taiwan for our advanced semiconductors. You advised the president to get some kind of a manufacturing czar, supply chain czar. Where are you on this issue? And tell us what you're hearing from corporate executives today in terms of what they're worried about, Rob.
Yeah. So, Maria, number one, I would love to have the president develop a unit called Manufacturing and Technology Unit. It has to be staffed by the operating people, not by the economists. It will require coordination with Japan, with Germany, with South Korea, Australia, and Israel. Without that, we cannot get the hyperscale to compete with China. It's imperative so that we do it. I must inform you, Barbara Hampton, who is reporting to Secretary Bessent about the rare earth materials. What a quick progress. A stroke of genius by the secretary. It's moving. We have a clear example. Replicate, replicate, replicate. She is the former CEO of Siemens. More is going to be here. The president has linkages now with Intel and others. Let's formalize it. Let's create it as durability for the future. And let's go forward.
Yeah. Well, Barbara Hampton has been on this program many times. Talking about what she's doing in terms of her Texas facility, and certainly she is on the leading edge of getting that critical minerals business going. Yeah,
Maria, we have many more available who would love to do this. We got to really scale it up, publicize it. The problem President Trump has that the White House is terrible in showing what is happening. Communications to the public are zero in the area of what's happening. So I like to suggest that he change it.
Go ahead.
I like to suggest the president change the White House communication machine altogether. And it has to be public knowing every single day what is China doing in the international trade. It's available. It's so easy to do. Use Fox, use other channels so people have a trustworthy daily report. What's happening in the whole economic area. Because every CEO must come to terms with the mindset that we are in an economic war. They don't have it yet. And it was going to come with daily information.
It's a very important point that you make, Ram, and I know that you're hearing this also from CEOs that you talk to. But President Trump is like a walking communications unit himself. He takes calls from reporters. He's constantly talking with reporters. So he's quite transparent, regardless of what's going on in the communications unit. But Ram, what specifically are you hearing from CEOs today in terms of their worries? What are they thinking about? Obviously, AI is up there, but you give us the list.
Yeah, number one, many of them are really not aware of what's happening. They love the stock market. Number two, 30 industries that are affected badly, they are scared, totally scared. Number three, those who are not yet being affected, they are ignorant. what's going to be happening and what's happening right now, because the hidden costs are going up, disruption by the President Xi, the tariffs and Trump factors, supply chain interruptions, and choke points in transportation. And they are concerned about the hidden costs, like these costs are going off the insurance and all that. So there is a fear there, and they have to have a mindset that this is reality. How do we find profitable growth that is capital efficient? So they don't have a war room. They got to create a war room, daily scanning what's coming out. Today you can do that through ChatGPT and so on, but it has to be the operating people, not the economists.
Okay. Ron, we love getting your take on all of this. We know you're in touch with.
All right, before we go to the next video, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen will help to remodel your joints if you have arthritis or a sports injury. What collagen does is it'll help to build that cartilage and help to build up that cushioning of the joint. It'll also block the pain gatekeeper, NAV 1.7. It will reduce inflammation by blocking EP4, and it will help to reduce the erosion of the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13. So please go to my store, get the collagen, stack it with the collagen that I have to help to remodel the joint, and do these exercises that I've been telling people to do. Open up the joint up to a certain pain level, right when it starts to cause some pain, and go a little bit more, just a little bit. Count to 30, do that 2 or 3 times every day. And what will happen is you'll be able to open up the joint over time with less pain, all the way to the point where you'll be able to open up the joint completely. But it will take time. Take the collagen and the collagen to help support the remodeling of the joint. Now, in terms of temporary relief, get the super strong relief. This will help with sprains, pulled muscles, tension headaches, and arthritis. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the super strong relief. It's a topical. Just rub it on the area of the pain, and it'll relieve the pain within 90 seconds. All right, this is Nick Robertson talking about J.D. Vance in Switzerland.
J.D. Vance said they want to get to the major sticking points, and I think this is going to be a real test of whether they can begin to work through that 14-point memorandum of understanding taking place behind high security up in the mountains in that hotel, burning stock over my shoulder there. This is the first time that J.D. Vance will have met with his Iranian counterpart, the head of their negotiating team, Mohammed Ghalibaf, and this is happening. First time they've met in 2 months. The last time they met was back in Islamabad, where the talks didn't work out. It's taken 2 months since then to get this memorandum of understanding. It's all been done through the Pakistani and Qatari mediators. It's all very tenuous, but I think both sides genuinely believe that when the signatures went down by the Iranian president and President Trump late Wednesday night, that at least this was sort of locked in, and they could get down the road to that really thorny issue that President Trump wants to make sure that Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon, that the highly enriched uranium is diluted, that all of that is controlled. But of course, Lebanon is the #1 point of the first clause in that memorandum of understanding. And Iran is saying very simply, President Trump, if there isn't a ceasefire in Lebanon, how can we know that you can push through and give guarantees for the rest of the memorandum of understanding? And to that point, they're saying one of the things we guaranteed was opening the Strait of Hormuz. Well, we are taking that away, a diplomatic stick, closing the Strait of Hormuz, and the quid pro quo appears to be ensure that there is a much fuller ceasefire in Lebanon. So that is the first topic of conversation. It's not the only topic today. It will begin in a sort of four-way discussion, the US, the Iranians, the Qataris, and the Pakistanis around the table together. It's going to consume a lot of time. And the outcome of that will be a test of how realistic the rest of the timeline is, which, as you say, was already very, very stretched. I think there is a lot of diplomacy going on in the background on Lebanon. We certainly know Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been very heavily engaged, the Lebanese side and the Israeli side, to try to tamp down the escalating tensions and violence at the Israeli airstrikes, the killing of IDF soldiers, the killing of many Lebanese civilians. Front and center, this is a test today.
All right.
It's a hard
There's about
stopping
50.
moment.
There's about a 50-50 chance that oil will go up above $80 a barrel for WTI Monday, maybe even Sunday night when oil markets start to open up. The reason why I say this is that it's heavily predicated not so much on the negotiations that are happening in Switzerland, but will the strait be open or closed? If the strait is closed and there's no oil flowing through, then the energy markets will bid the future price up. Now, normally, natural gas trades inversely with oil. Not all the time, but 70% of the time, right? So if oil, WTI goes up, I suspect that natural gas will actually go down. Now, there's 50% chance that oil will trade down to about 73, as long as oil is flowing through the strait. And when that happens, most likely natural gas will bid up a little bit more. But it's getting a little rich for natural gas and it needs to come back down. Last I looked, I believe it was trading at around 3.2. I believe the close was on Thursday. Because energy markets were not trading on Friday because of the holiday. Natural gas is trading at just below 3.2. It was 3.198. So beware, it all is predicated on will oil flow through the strait? We don't know. I give it a 50-50 chance. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. C60, you can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It is cheaper per ounce to get the higher ounce configuration. You can get it in avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, and MCT coconut oil. Take a teaspoon a day every day. This will help to soak up free radicals. It's about 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Take a teaspoon a day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning. Take a teaspoon every day. You'll notice that after your workout, you're recovering quicker. You're going to have more energy. The reason being is you're soaking up free radicals, reducing inflammation at the cellular level and at the tissue level. And by improving the health of the mitochondria, your energy levels will go up because your ATP is higher. And at the vascular level, you're soaking up those free radicals and reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL, so you're reducing plaque formation. And at the neuron level, you are reducing stress, reducing inflammation, you're soaking up free radicals, you have more ATP, you have healthier mitochondria, you have more neurotransmitters. And so what will happen is that your positive neuroplasticity will improve. You'll have more dendritic connections. You'll have more cognition, better memory, faster thinking, and better brain function. And your immune system, your endocrine system will perform better by soaking up free radicals and keeping inflammation down. So get the C60, take it every day, teaspoon a day. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and it's part of a more comprehensive protocol. Stack this with the Max 35 or Cleanse, the probiotics, the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, and the Boomer Boost. And you do that as a very powerful protocol to slow down the aging process. And we're targeting all these really important features to slow down the aging process, making sure you have higher energy levels, boosting up the immune system, bringing down inflammation, improving cardiovascular health, improving brain function and musculature, slowing down the methylation of your genes. These are all very important features to slowing down the aging process and increase longevity. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening. That's the end of the broadcast. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and be a paid member to my Patreon channel and Substack channel. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.